My name is Josh Peck, host of Peck Report on Daily Renegade. I used to suffer with chronic pain from a degenerative bone disease. I was hopelessly addicted to opioids without any end in sight. But then, I discovered Kratom and CBD. I am no longer on prescription drugs, and I have more energy and pain relief than ever before. Kratom and CBD have given me my life back without draining my bank account. If you too would like some minor to major pain relief, Kratom and CBD might be for you. Either click on the links in the description below this video or go to dailyrenegade.com on the top left banner or right side ad and check out Tropic Health Kratom and CBD. Use promo code HEALTH20 for 20% off your order and get your life back today. A medical worker describes terrifying lung failure and some really horrific, just a horrific way to die from COVID-19. But even in his young patients, this isn't only killing the elderly. Also, Bill Gates is calling for a national tracking system for corona, which what this would mean is if you're not vaccinated, the government would know and they would be able to track you and possibly persecute you. I say possibly, but we have all read the book of Revelation, so we know where this is headed. All that and more on today's Peck Report. Hey everybody, hope you are doing well. We got a lot to talk about today, and it seems like in these times that we're living in, it's really every day things are changing, and it's difficult to do a show like Peck Report because I usually record these about a week ahead of time, and because of that, it's hard for me to stay up to date. So I try to give you information that is relatively timeless. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about today and every day on Peck Report. Also, there's been a little bit of a set redesign, so let me know what you think about that. We got some new pictures on the wall, some new lights behind me, a couple of new shots here. I was thinking about going with red and blue to match the pictures. And I still might do that. Of course, that's going to trigger some of the Freemasonry, conspiracy theorists out there saying I'm a Freemason or whatever. But that's going to happen anyway. So I don't mind that so much. But let me know your thoughts. I want to know what you think. Now, on Peck Report, it is difficult because we do these a week ahead of time. And so what we've done is we've looked into my web team has looked into doing live broadcasts directly from the Daily Renegade website, dailyrenegade.com, because those of you who follow the show, then you know that we've essentially been banned from YouTube. We're not going to be able to post for a very long time, if at all. We do have a backup YouTube channel we've been using, but it's only a matter of time that they're going to shut that down too, of course. The best place to go is dailyrenegade.com. And listen, because YouTube has been our main source of traffic, and without having that, it's very, very difficult for us to get the word out about Daily Renegade. So we rely on you guys to do it. Even if you're not paying members, but you enjoy the content and you find it helpful, please help by sharing dailyrenegade.com. Share this video from the website. Or if you find it on one of our alternate platforms, we're on BitChute, Brighteon, we're in a lot of places. If you find it from there, you can share it from there too. But the best place, because the only place that we actually have full control over is dailyrenegade.com. That is the safest place. So if you're able to, please share this video from the website, dailyrenegade.com. Share it from the website. Get a membership if you haven't already. I've been pushing this off as long as possible, but because of all the changes, because of all the censorship, it's looking like in the near future we might have to increase the price for new members. Now, that's not going to affect prices for current members. So if you're already a member or if you get a membership today, it's not going to affect you. The price will be the same, but this would be for new members. And the reason that we have to increase the price is because we just don't have the traffic that we were getting from YouTube. So we don't have as many member signups because just not as many people know about it. So one way that we can avoid having to raise prices at all is by all of you sharing videos, sharing my videos, even if you share them to make fun of them. It's okay to disagree. It's totally fine to disagree. We'll take the publicity. That would be so. I joke around and say our good friends at Right Wing Watch help us out quite a bit by giving us some free publicity on their website. Of course, they're doing it to make fun of us, but we'll take what we can get. So that's what's going on with Daily Renegade today. Everything with the quarantine has severely slowed things down for many of you as well. And so we're trying to figure out ways that we can still get you the content that you want. We want to be that one beacon in all of this quarantine haze. We want to be that one beacon of light where you can go for just good, solid Christian conservative information. We want to be that for you. You guys are paying for it, so we want to give you your money's worth. The first thing that I want to talk about today, there's been a pretty horrifying story, and this isn't sensationalist. I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like exaggerating already bad scenarios and bad circumstances just to get clicks. I've never really enjoyed doing that, but there's a new report. There's a new article from an actual medical worker describing not only how terrifying lung failure for coronavirus victims is, but dispelling the rumor that this is only hitting elderly people. This is not only hitting elderly people. It's killing young people too. No one's exempt from this. So we really gotta. We really got to know what we're looking at. It's really important that we have the right information so we know how to properly respond to this, what to do. And it's really difficult because, we can't trust our mainstream media. There's really not a lot of media that you can trust. Independent sources are better, in my opinion. And of course I'm biased because I am one of those independent sources. Independent sources are better, but even still, when you're watching any news program or getting information from anywhere, it's going to be biased. Bias in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. What's bad is when people don't admit to their biases. So like me, I am totally biased. I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative. And when you watch Peck Report, you're going to get the news filtered through that lens. But at the same time, I'm also pro-truth. I'm anti-lies as much as humanly possible because we're all imperfect. But I don't like dealing in. I don't like sensationalism because I think it only hurts people. I don't want to hurt you just so I get more views. Like that. That is like the epitome of selfishness. So I'm anti-sensationalism. I believe in just giving all of you the information that you need so you can make informed decisions on what's best for you and your family and how to prepare for everything that's going on. So because of that, it's really important that we look at all the facts and not just believe everything we read online. And I think, if we're all honest with ourselves, I think pretty much all of us can say with this coronavirus thing that at some point or another, we were wrong. For me, I didn't think this was going to be as big of a deal as it turned out to be. I thought that it was hyped up. I thought that the mainstream media was using it against Trump, which they are doing that to a certain extent. Of course, they're going to take any opportunity they can to take a swipe at Trump. I think that's part of it. But I don't believe this is as overblown as some people are still saying it is. I really hope that you've all been able to prepare. And that you're going to the grocery store and that you're buying food. I think last week I said the best way to do it right now is to go to the store more frequently and get a little extra. Don't panic buy. Things have shifted, things have progressed, and now I'm saying every time you go to the store, treat it as if that is the last time that you're going to be able to go to the store, because right now a lot of stores are getting wiped out. They're getting a lot of businesses are getting closed down, and it's getting really bad. So you need to prepare. If you haven't already, I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you. You need to do something. I don't know what can be done at this point, but the most important thing is not only to prepare physically but spiritually as well. So we don't want to live in fear. We can still have fun. You can treat this as some good quality time with your family. It wasn't that long ago that people lived like this all the time, pre-internet, pre-television. 100 years ago, this is how people lived. They just lived at home, and they would go to work if they had a job that they went to work. But a lot of people just stayed at home. They would hunt for their food. They would garden. They would do a lot of the stuff that now, because of this coronavirus outbreak, because of the pandemic, and because of everything getting shut down, we're having to relearn these skills. So hopefully you've been able to learn how to do some of this stuff. Gardening is always a great thing. We're certainly starting to do that here, but at least keeping some food stocked up, because we don't know how long this is going to last. Last week I said that we're going to prepare for a year. That's what we're doing. And some of the reports that are coming out are saying that might not even be enough. Some of the more recent reports are saying we could be looking at a year and a half. Not saying that to scare anybody, not saying that to fearmonger, just it's good to be prepared. And if you prepare for a year and a half, 2 years, and then it turns out that this is over in a couple of months and you don't you didn't need to prepare, what's the worst case scenario for you? The worst case scenario is that you don't have to go to the store for a while. So that's not a bad thing. You'll still eat the food. It's not going to go to waste. But if you don't prepare, if you take the attitude that some have taken, this is overblown, it's going to be over in a month, it's just like swine flu and all that stuff, and that blew over really fast. If you take that attitude, and if you're wrong, you're putting yourself and your family in jeopardy. So you don't want to do that. I mean, Scripture says that somebody who doesn't take care of their family, who doesn't provide for their family, is worse than an infidel in the eyes of the Lord. And that brings up the spiritual component of all this. Of course, we got to be prepared physically, but you got to be prepared spiritually as well. We're not supposed to be living in fear, but we are to be wise. We are to store up when things are good. We are to prepare for famines. Just because we live in the 20th century doesn't mean that famines don't happen anymore. They still happen. They can happen to you. They can happen to me. They can happen to anybody. So we're told to be wise, but spiritually we have to be grounded. Don't live in fear. Use this time to get closer with Jesus, if anything else. If you're watching this and you're not saved, now would be the time. We don't know how bad this is going to get, and you got to prepare for your eternal life even more than you have to prepare for your physical life, because this physical life is going to come and go. You're alive today, but there's no guarantee you're going to be tomorrow. There is a guarantee, though, that you will die at some point, and you want to be prepared for that. So now is the time to, if you've been putting it off, don't wait. What's the point of waiting any longer? Even if you're not really affected by coronavirus in any way, that this life is going to end sometime. You will have a day that you die. What's next? You might think nothing comes next, but again, what if you're wrong and you didn't prepare? If you're wrong and not prepared, you're in for an eternity of misery. And it's not because God is mean and he's just some angry, jealous, mean God up there just throwing people into the lake of fire because they don't follow him. It's because he's just and he's perfect. And when you're in eternity, when you leave this physical world, that includes time. Time is a physical property. It's a physical dimension, just like space. That's time as well. When you enter in eternity, there is no longer any time to make that choice. There's no longer any time in which to repent and turn to Jesus. There's no time anymore. What you are when you enter eternity, that's what you are in eternity, in this state outside of time. Now, how exactly that works, what that experience is going to be like, I can't imagine what a timeless existence is. But there's no opportunity for choice in this matter anymore at that point. So if you enter into eternity separated from God, separated from Jesus, that's like going into a nuclear reactor without a suit on. Jesus is your suit. His blood is your covering. That's how you can approach God in eternity, and you can be covered by the salvation of Jesus. If you go into eternity without that, then you enter eternity separated from God, and there is no hope. There is no more reconciliation. Time is a gift from God in order for us to make this choice, to come to Jesus and repent and serve him, follow him. And so now if you've been thinking about it and wondering if this is something you should do, what is holding you up? I once heard from a friend of mine. He said that I was witnessing to him and trying to tell him about Jesus, and he said that he'll make that decision once he knows everything about it. Not going to happen. And as far as I know, he's still not a Christian, but he has been asking me for prayer lately. So, pray for my unnamed friend. I don't want to say his name on the air and embarrass him, but I do believe that, there's still hope. There's still breath in his lungs, so there's still hope. So keep him in prayer, please. But I think a lot of people have that attitude. They don't want to get into something until they feel like they know enough about it. I can understand why some people feel that way. I mean, that's how you feel that's how we basically treat anything else in life. I mean, if you're going to take up a new hobby, you want to learn about it before you go out and try it usually. Same like if you're going to pick a job, you probably want to learn about it before you jump into it. But Christianity isn't really like that. It's one of the only things in life that's not like that, and it's because it supersedes life. It's not bound to just this life. It's not, Christianity isn't just something that you do, in your day-to-day life. There's elements of that, but that's not really what it is. Christianity is a relationship with your Creator, with the God that created you, the one and only true God, Yahweh of the Bible. It's a relationship with Him through Jesus Christ. So that's the only, Scripture says that's the only way to the Father is through the Son. So the only way to be reconciled to God, because imagine this, you even if you're an atheist, I'm sure you would admit you're not perfect, right? None of us are. We're not perfect. Imagine, let's say you're wrong about the atheist stuff, just hypothetically. Let's say you're wrong, you enter into eternity, and now you're standing before God. Again, with the timeless stuff, I don't know how all this works, but just for sake of argument, and because it's the only way our brains can process it, let's say you're standing before God, and now you are face to face with a holy and perfect God that you have rejected. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not rejecting him. I just don't know. Well, you're hearing it now. So to not take his gift of salvation is by definition rejecting it. That's just the definition of it. It's just rejecting. It doesn't mean that you're doing it coldly, or it doesn't mean that you're a mean person about it. It just means you're just rejecting it. But imagine now you're face to face with your Creator, and through your whole life you've rejected him because you don't know when you're going to die. You could die tomorrow. That's why it's not wise to wait. You've rejected him, and now you got to explain yourself. How could you possibly? And one of the attributes of this God is that he's not going to be in the presence of sin. He's not going to be in the presence of anything but perfection. And we can't be perfect. We can't reconcile ourselves to God ourselves. And that's why God in the flesh, as Jesus Christ, died on the cross so that his blood, that's like a covering for us. His shed blood, his sacrifice is the ultimate covering for us. So if we enter into eternity with that covering, then we can say, Jesus paid my price. I know I've sinned against you. I am imperfect. I've done bad things in my life. And because you're a holy and just God, there must be a penalty for that, because that's justice. That's just righteous justice. But Jesus paid my price. And, so if you're a Christian, if you accept Jesus, then God can look at you and say, okay, come on in. Welcome to the family. If you don't have that covering, again, it's like entering a nuclear reactor without a hazmat suit. If you don't have that covering, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna tell God? It's kind of a popular thing for atheists to say that they'll tell God about all the bad things God did that they don't agree with. But imagine you're standing face to face with a holy and perfect God. Are you that confident that you, an imperfect human being, are going to be able to hold a perfect God to your standards because he didn't meet your preferences? I wouldn't be so confident. Especially when he's offered you a gift. He's offered you a way in, and he doesn't really ask much of you. Just believe. That's it. Just believe. You don't have to sacrifice animals. He's not asking you to give to charity and do all these wonderful things to earn your way into heaven. That's what separates Christianity from any other world religion. You don't earn your way to heaven. Every other religion you do. Christianity is the only one that says you don't deserve heaven. You deserve eternal torment in hell. Again, that word eternal, it doesn't mean forever. It means a state outside of time. It means that when you enter into God's domain, you deserve to be separated from him because you've sinned against him. We all have. We're not perfect, but God, in his infinite wisdom, he knows we're not perfect. He knows that, but he loves us anyway, and he even died to prove it. So, think about that. If you're wrong about the atheism stuff and you stand before God, what are you going to say? You're not going to have anything that you can say. At that point, you're going to see him for who he is, and you're going to know what a terrible mistake you've made. And there will be no hope at that point. Your hope is now. So now's the time. So the only reason that I went into all that is to say it's not only that we should be spiritually prepared, or it's not only that we should be physically prepared, but we need to be spiritually prepared too. So hopefully that helps. Please share that with your atheist friends. And anybody who is watching who has not made that choice, I would highly suggest that you do. Again, you don't have to know everything about it. You just Jesus said you just need a mustard seed size of faith. So you don't even need much, but you need to get reconciled, and you need to do that through Jesus. That's the only way. Start a relationship with him. Pray to him. Tell him you know you're not perfect. You've committed sins, and you want to be saved. You don't want him to forget you in eternity. You want to be saved as well. You want to be able to go to heaven. You want to start serving him today. And again, serving him isn't just so you can get into heaven. Once you receive salvation, you're saved. But so it's not about that. It's about, okay, now that you've accepted his gift of salvation. And by the way, I'm not saying a once saved, always saved, or always saved, once saved, always saved thing. I'm not saying that. That's a whole other Peck report. But once you've made that choice, well, now what do? You can't just ignore him again and just not talk to him anymore and not develop a relationship. I mean, he's a person, right? He's not just some entity out there in the ether, just some unconscious force. He's a person. So, if you meet a person for the first time and then you don't ever talk to him again, he's not going to consider you a friend. So if you really want him to be your father, you want to be in his family, you want to be adopted into his family, you got to continue the relationship, get to know him, start talking to him, start praying to him, read the Bible, start learning about him, and allow him to work in your life. He'll tell you what to do. Jesus told us what he wants us to do. And then once you make that choice, then welcome to the family. We're happy to count you as our new brother or sister in the Lord. All right, so the first story that I want to talk about here is, it is pretty horrific, but I think it's important. This disease is not only killing old people, so that is it's just not true. It's just not true. So ProPublica here put out this report from a medical worker. It says, as of Friday, and it's not, this whole article isn't, it contains the words of a medical worker who just found out how horrific this is, even in young people. So no one is exempt from this. We all got to be washing our hands and, yes, staying inside. And I know that people don't like the government telling them what to do. It really does go beyond this. It's just you don't want to get sick. You don't want someone else getting you sick. And you don't want to make somebody else sick. That's really all it is. At this point, I'm not really caring what the government is saying. It's just good common sense. Now, again, that doesn't mean you sacrifice your rights or anything like that for some sense of security. I mean, this goes beyond politics at this point. It goes beyond that. It's you don't know for 2 weeks. When you catch this, you don't know for 2 weeks that you're sick. So you can be spreading this to other people and essentially getting other people killed, possibly. And they could be doing that to you. So we don't want that. It's a good idea to limit your exposure to other people as much as possible. You can still go to church. You can do that online. There's no reason not to. You can still have fellowship through chat rooms and through comments and stuff like that. So you're not forsaking the fellowship. Going to church every Sunday doesn't get you into heaven anyway. That's not what it's about. So there are ways around that. But this myth that it's only attacking old people, it really needs to stop. And so this came out recently, but it says, as of Friday, Louisiana was reporting 479 confirmed cases of COVID-19, one of the highest numbers in the country. 10 people had died. The majority of cases are in New Orleans, which now has one confirmed case for every 1,000 residents. So this number is climbing. New Orleans had held Mardi Gras celebrations just 2 weeks before its first patient, with more than 1 million revelers in its streets. So see, even there, I mean, I'm sure people there were saying, we should be able to do whatever we want to do. But look how many might have been infected because of that social gathering. It's just right now, it's not wise to do this kind of stuff. The writer of the article says, I spoke to a respiratory therapist there whose job is to ensure that patients are breathing well. He works in a medium-sized city hospital's intensive care unit. We are withholding his name and employer as he fears retaliation. Before the virus came to New Orleans, his days were pretty relaxed, nebulizing patients with asthma, adjusting oxygen tubes that ran through the nose, or in the most severe cases, setting up and managing ventilators. His patients were usually older with chronic health conditions and bad lungs. There's something else before we get to this. This is the way that it happened with the Spanish flu. It attacked the old people first, and then there was a second wave that hit the young people. And it seems like coronavirus is following that same trend. It says that since last week, he's been running ventilators for the sickest COVID-19 patients. Many are relatively young, 40s and 50s, and have minimal, if any, pre-existing conditions on their charts. He's overwhelmed, stunned by the manifestation of the infection, both its speed and intensity. The ICU, where he works, has essentially become a coronavirus unit. He estimates that his hospital has admitted dozens of confirmed or presumptive coronavirus patients. About a third have ended up on ventilators. That's another problem too. Hospitals are running out of beds. They're running out of ventilators. They're running out of equipment. So if you get this, it's no guarantee that you're going to be able to just go to the hospital and get it taken care of. And there are even people in the hospital who still die from it anyway, some of which are pretty young. His hospital had not prepared for this volume before the virus first appeared, nor has basically any hospital, because nobody expected this. One physician had tried to raise alarms, asking about negative pressure rooms and ventilators. Most staff concluded that he was overreacting. Quote, they thought the media was overhyping it, end quote, the respiratory therapist told me. Quote, in retrospect, he was right to be concerned, end quote. So this person talked to the article writer about why exactly he had been so alarmed, and his account has been condensed and edited for clarity. So this is what he says. This is all quotes. So he says, quote, reading about it in the news, I knew it was going to be bad, but we deal with the flu every year, so I was thinking, well, it's probably not that much worse than the flu. But seeing patients with COVID-19 completely changed my perspective, and it's a lot more frightening. I have patients in their early 40s, and yeah, I was kind of shocked. I'm seeing people who look relatively healthy with a minimal health history, and they are completely wiped out like they've been hit by a truck. This is knocking out what should have been perfectly fit, healthy people. Patients will be on minimal support, on a little bit of oxygen, and then all of a sudden they go into complete respiratory arrest, shutdown, and can't breathe at all. This is end quote. This is one of the worst ways that a person can die. We really need to keep these people in prayer for healing, because this is horrific. This is like drowning, but worse. So it continues, quote, we have an observation unit in the hospital, and we've been admitting patients that had tested positive and are presumptive positive. These patients that had been in contact with people who were positive, we go and check vitals on patients every 4 hours, and some are in continuous cardiac monitor. So we see that their heart rate has a sudden increase or decrease, or someone goes in and sees that the patient is struggling to breathe or is unresponsive. That seems to be what happens to a lot of these patients. They suddenly become unresponsive or go into respiratory failure. It seems like this thing can happen just basically overnight. One day they're okay, or they have a little case of the sniffles, and then the next day they're gone. It's called acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. This or ARDS, that means the lungs are filled with fluid, and it's notable for the way the x-ray looks. The entire lung is basically whited out from fluid. Patients with ARDS are extremely difficult to oxygenate. It has a really high mortality rate, about 40%. The way to manage it is to put a patient on a ventilator. The additional pressure helps the oxygen go into the bloodstream. High mortality rate, about 40%. You might be thinking that's not that high, but that's the mortality rate with a hospital, with a ventilator, with everything that somebody needs. And even with all of that, it's still as high as 40%. Imagine how much higher it is if you can't get to the hospital, or if this happens overnight and you can't get to the hospital in time, or if the hospital doesn't have enough respirators or rooms because everybody's getting sick. Imagine how much higher that mortality rate could skyrocket. And I think we'll probably get some more accurate numbers on that within the next 2 weeks or a month or so. Normally, and look, you can see in these x-rays here, this is what this looks like. The whited out part is the fluid. That's how it comes out in an x-ray. But it says normally ARDS is something that happens over time as the lungs get more and more inflamed. But with this virus, it seems like it happens overnight. When you're healthy, your lung is made up of little balloons. It's like a tree made out of a bunch of little leaves. The lung is made of little air sacs that are called the alveoli. When you breathe in, all those little air sacs inflate, and they have capillaries in the walls, little blood vessels. The oxygen gets from the air in the lung to the blood, so it can be carried around the body. Typically, with ARDS, the lungs become inflamed. It's like inflammation anywhere. If you have a burn on your arm, the skin around it turns red from additional blood flow. The body is sending it additional nutrients to heal. The problem is when that happens in your lungs, fluid and extra blood start going to the lungs. Viruses can injure cells in the walls of the alveoli, so the fluid leaks into the alveoli. The telltale sign of ARDS in an x-ray is what's called ground glass opacity, and you can see that here in these x-rays. It's like an old-fashioned ground glass privacy window in a shower, and lungs look that way because fluid is white on an x-ray, so the lung looks like white ground glass, or sometimes pure white, because the lung is filled with so much fluid displacing where the air would normally be. With our coronavirus patients, once they're on ventilators, most need about the highest settings that we can do, about 90% oxygen and 16 of PEEP, positive end expiratory pressure, which keeps the lung inflated. That's nearly as high as I've ever seen. The level we're at means we're running out of options. In my experience, this severity of ARDS is usually more typical of someone who has near drowning experience. They have a bunch of dirty water in their lungs, or people who inhale caustic gas, especially for it to have such an acute onset like that. I've never seen a microorganism or an infection process cause such acute damage to the lungs so rapidly. That's what really shocked me. And listen, look at this. This is horrific. You'll try to rip the breathing tube out because you feel like it's choking you. It first struck me how different it was when I saw my first corona patient go bad. I was like, holy S, this is not the flu. Watching this relatively young guy gasping for air, pink frothy secretions coming out of his tube and out of his mouth. The ventilator should have been doing the work of breathing, but he was still gasping for air, moving his mouth, moving his body, struggling. We had to restrain him. Because at that moment you're panicking. You don't know that these people are trying to help you because you're just in it's fight or flight mode. You're just pure adrenaline. You're struggling to breathe. You're in psychosis almost. So they had to be restrained. I mean, imagine how horrific that would be. With all the coronavirus patients, we've had to restrain them. They really hyperventilate, really struggle to breathe. When you're in the mind state of struggling to breathe and delirious with fever, you don't know when someone is trying to help you, so you'll rip the breathing tube out because you feel like it's choking you, but you are drowning. You're drowning with your own fluid in your own lungs. When someone has an infection, I'm used to seeing the normal colors you'd associate, greens and yellows. The coronavirus patients with ARDS have been having a lot of secretions that are actually pink because they're filled with blood cells that are leaking into their airways. They are essentially drowning in their own blood and fluids because their lungs are so full. So we're constantly having to suction out the secretions every time we go into the rooms. Before this, and this will sound familiar because this is just what we've seen with everybody was basically like this. Before this, we were all joking. It's grim humor. If you're exposed to the virus and test positive and go into quarantine, you get paid. We were all joking. I want to get the coronavirus because then I get a paid vacation from work. And once I saw these patients with it, I was like, holy S. I do not want to catch this, and I don't want anyone I know to catch this. I worked a long stretch of days last week, and I watched it go from this novelty to a serious issue. We had 1 or 2 patients at our hospital, and then 5 to 10, and then 20. Every day, the intensity keeps ratcheting up. More patients, and the patients themselves are starting to get sicker and sicker. When it first started, we all had tons of equipment, tons of supplies, and as we started getting more patients, we started to run out. This is very likely to happen in all hospitals everywhere, your local hospitals, so it's something you need to be aware of. And that's if communities don't do what they need to do to protect themselves and each other. They had to ration supplies. At first, we were trying to get to use 1 mask per patient. Then it was just you get 1 mask for positive patients, another mask for everyone else, and now it's just you get 1 mask. I work 12-hour shifts. Right now we are running about 4 times the number of ventilators than we normally have going. We have such a large volume of patients, but it's really hard to find enough people to fill all the shifts. The caregiver to patient ratio has gone down, and you can't spend as much time with each patient. You can't adjust the vent settings as aggressively because you're not going into the room as often. And see, that's the other thing. These hospitals, they're not staffed for this. There's no way they can be. So the nurses, the doctors, they can't go into each room as often as the patient needs in order to get this fluid out because it just builds right back up. They're not able to go into the room as often. And we're also trying to avoid going into the room as much as possible to reduce infection risk of staff to conserve personal protective equipment. So that's the other thing. If the staff catches this as well, I mean, they're around these patients all the time. If they catch it as well, then there's nobody to take care of everybody else. Even if you survive, it can do long-lasting damage. And so it continues to conclude it here, but we are trying to wean down on the settings on the ventilator as much as possible because you don't want someone to be on a ventilator longer than they need to be. Your risk of mortality increases every day that you spend on a ventilator. The high pressures from high vent settings is pushing air into the lungs and can overinflate those little balloons. They can pop. It can destroy the alveoli. Even if you survive ARDS, although some damage can heal, it can do long-lasting damage to the lungs. They can get filled up with scar tissue. ARDS can lead to cognitive decline. Some people's muscles waste away, and it takes them a long time to recover once they come off the ventilator. There is a very real possibility that we might run out of ICU beds, and at that point, I don't know what happens if patients get sick and need to be intubated and put on a ventilator. Is that person going to die because we don't have the equipment to keep them alive? What if it goes on for months and dozens of people die because we don't have the ventilators? Hopefully we don't get there, but if you only have 1 ventilator and you have 2 patients, you're going to have to go with the one who has a higher likelihood of surviving, and I'm afraid we'll get to that point. I've heard that's happening in Italy. We're only about 2 weeks behind Italy right now. So if it's that bad in Italy, give it another couple of weeks from the point of this recording. So 1 week after you're watching this, and it's already happening in Italy, and it's likely to already be happening at that point here in America. So we have to take this seriously, and we really have to do everything we can to minimize the risk to yourselves and to everybody else. Again, this isn't sensational fear-mongering stuff. This is just being real. This is just the situation that we're in. We don't have time to play the conspiracy game anymore. This isn't one of those. This isn't one of those that we can play games with and try to figure out what secret organization or why is the government telling us this and really they're lying, and we don't have time for that. That's just putting people at risk. And I know that's not a popular message, but I hope that in the years that I've been broadcasting, I hope in all those years I've built up enough trust with you all to realize, why else would I be saying this? It's not a popular message. It's not going to get me more views. It's certainly not going to get me any more followers or fans. There's really nothing in it for me personally. It's because I'm not motivated by that right now. I'm motivated by getting the truth out to as many as will accept it. And just in good conscience, I can't do anything but, as best I can, deliver the truth to you, because for me to sensationalize it, that's risking somebody's life. And I don't care enough about clicks and views and money and, you know, all the material stuff to risk someone's life over it. And, you know, for those of you who have been following me long enough, I hope that I've been able to earn enough trust with you that you know that about me. I wouldn't be saying this, everything that I'm saying in this Peck report, I wouldn't be saying it unless I absolutely believed it to be true, and if I wasn't living out that truth myself. So me and my family, we're taking this extremely seriously. We are staying inside as much as possible. We're keeping everything as clean as possible. You know, we're not going out, hanging out, you know, going out to eat. You know, we're not doing all this stuff. We're keeping our kids indoors. You know, we'll let them go play out in the yard, but we're not bringing them to other kids' houses. We're just not. We want to do everything we can to minimize the risk as much as possible. And at this point, you know, it's not about, you know, letting the government stomp all over you. Look, if there is a serious push for the government to start stripping your rights away, then yes, absolutely fight against that. Because once they have that power, they're not going to give it up. And while it might not be as bad with Trump, at some point in the future, we're going to get another Democrat as president. You know, it's not like it's going to be Republican forever, as much as great as that would be. You know, Republicans got their problems too, though. But at some point, a Democrat's going to be in power, and they will have access to that power. Also, some are saying, you know, well, it's, you know, some in the government are saying, well, it's a state of emergency. You know, we need to be able to have extra power over people. But you know, just for now. But who's to say once this blows over that they don't say, well, it could come back, so we need to maintain this power. Once you give the government power, they don't tend to let it go. So absolutely fight against that if they're proposing to do that. But again, I would be saying the same stuff even if the government never said to stay indoors. Stay indoors. You don't want to risk catching this or spreading it. It's very serious. And if you're one of these people that say, oh, this is, you know, if you're, can't imagine you would be, but if you're still one of these people that say, oh, this whole thing is blown out of proportion, it's a false flag, there's nothing really going on, it's not that bad. Look, you are risking people's lives spreading that around. If I'm wrong, the worst thing that happens is somebody stays inside for a little while. That's the worst thing that happens. They're a little bit more isolated, but no one's going to die from it. If you're wrong, people could be dying of the worst possible death you can imagine. I mean, what we just read was horrific. I can't imagine. People who have caught this, we really need to pray for, even if you don't like them. And I'm talking about even celebrities, and I don't like celebrities much either. But look, you got to pray for them. Pray that they get over this, and pray that they come to Jesus. Even if you consider them as enemies, and I wouldn't even go that far, I just think they're kind of dumb sometimes, but even if you consider them as enemies, Jesus tells us to pray for, even love our enemies, even those who persecute us, so you don't have an excuse. But if you're spreading this stuff around, that this is all blown out of proportion, people don't really need to prepare, it's just a government thing to get control, and that might be an element of it, but if you're saying things online that's convincing people to not take this as seriously as it is, you could be contributing to their deaths, and deaths of who knows how many people they come in contact with. And look, for those of you who have been watching me, who have been following me all these years, when have you ever heard me say stuff like that? You know, when have you ever heard me sensationalize like that? That's not my shtick. That's not my thing. It's a very serious time, and we need to take it seriously. We can't be playing conspiracy anymore. It goes beyond that. All right, we got more to talk about. Bill Gates is, speaking of conspiracies, Bill Gates is calling for a national ID system for anti-vaxxers, and this could apply for if they come up with an anti-coronavirus vaccine. This could apply. If you choose to not get the vaccine, they could track you. And look, I'm not telling you to get a vaccine. Christina and I, we're not into the vaccine thing. There's, I don't trust it. I just don't. And we've done Peck reports on that, but for the free version of this Peck report, I can't really talk too much about it because, again, we're on the backup channel on YouTube, but YouTube will delete it. So best place to go, I'm going to talk about it in the next segment for members only, but best place to go is dailyrenegade.com. We do have to talk about this because it has serious implications, especially for Christians. There is a serious thing here a serious question we have to ask ourselves. Could the government weaponize this in order to basically bring about everything that's prophesied in Revelation, Mark of the Beast, that kind of stuff. So we do need to talk about that. But again, we're going to have to save that for members only. Please go to dailyrenegade.com, dailyrenegade.com. Get a membership today if you haven't had a chance to already. And while you're there, we have several products that you really need to be stocking up on now while you still can, because these things are going to be the first thing that the government's going to shut down. And in many ways, they've already limited it a lot. So if you're like me and you depend on Kratom to get through the day because you have chronic pain, you need to stock up, because this is going to be the first thing to go. If you're able to stock up on this and stock up for a while, because Kratom stays good for a long time, so you're safe storing it if you store it in a cool, dry place. But you don't want to face a day where you don't have anything to get through your chronic pain and all the pain comes back. I mean, that's something I think about all the time. So I've stocked up. You can go to, at the beginning of this video, you saw a commercial for Tropic Health. We have that on Daily Renegade. They accept credit cards. Coastline Kratom is also great. They do not accept credit cards, but they do accept Zelle Pay, so you can set up a Zelle Pay account right on their website if you choose to go with Coastline Kratom. Both of these companies are great, and the reason that we put two of them up there is so you have two good sources. If one runs out of stock, maybe the other one has some. So I mean, we did that early on. We did that before we knew about coronavirus stuff. So, I did that because maybe somebody has a preference of one company over another. I think both are great. But Kratom can really help with chronic pain. And in these times, you really need to stock up. So dailyrenegade.com, you can find a link to it there in the top, very top of the website. You can also get CBD. CBD is another great thing to have. And you're going to want to stock up on this too, because people are buying it like crazy. And this is another thing that the government's trying to shut down. They're trying to ban. They're trying to ban Kratom. They're trying to ban CBD, and they're trying to ban the next thing I'm going to talk about. And actually, we found out through some digging, this next thing was the main thing why YouTube deleted like 30 of our videos. But this here, CBD Pure, CBD Pets, they test every batch to make sure that it's purely organic, it's clean, it's pure, and it's pesticide free, all of that stuff. Everything you want in a good CBD, dailyrenegade.com. And then lastly, we also have colloidal silver. I am not going to tell you that this is going to cure a coronavirus outbreak. I have zero evidence of that. I would not say that. Now, me even talking about this colloidal silver, and that's the thing. Like, we don't even, like, I don't know. Out of the three things that we have available, colloidal silver is the thing that I have the least amount to say, just because what I usually say is, like, the way that I pitch it to people is you can use this to clean your countertops instead of using cancer-causing chemicals in your sink. But there have been a lot of people saying that this is an immune booster, and I know that a lot of my audience likes colloidal silver, so that's the reason that we have it available. But you can get that at dailyrenegade.com as well. Silver of Life is the #1 rated pure colloidal silver. And this stuff, this is what makes me really think there's a lot of truth with some claims, because YouTube said that basically because we do these little, we have links to colloidal silver in our descriptions in our videos. That's why they deleted our videos, a lot of our videos, and banned our account for who knows how long, is because of that. And I don't want to deprive you guys of something that might be actually helping. Again, I'm not making any claims about the product whatsoever, but I don't want to deprive you of something that might be helping, again, just so I can get more clicks or more video views. If the Lord believes in what we're doing, if we're serving the Lord and taking every opportunity that we can to serve him, then he'll bless this ministry. And if he doesn't want us doing this, then he won't bless it. But that he has been blessing it, and I've heard from many of you that you've been blessed as well. So that's why I say that while you can get a membership at dailyrenegade.com. $10 a month or $100 a year. That's all it costs right now. That price could go up, so get it now while you can, while it's still cheap. The price will not go up for existing members, so get it now while it's still cheap. DailyRenegade.com. You get the rest of this Peck Report. You get we have over a dozen shows now. We have like 15 different unique shows from different hosts. You get the full versions of all that. What else do you have going on right now? You're in quarantine, you're at home. You're not going to waste your money on Netflix, who has made it known they hate Christians. You're not going to give money to a business that hates you. So go to Daily Renegade, binge watch some Daily Renegade. You have hours and hours and hours of stuff that can get you through this quarantine, and you can spend some time with your family. Put on an episode of Peck Report, or put on an episode of Christian Contrarian with Gary Wayne, and get a conversation going with your family. It's a really good thing to do. You can have some great fellowship with your family, and with us, dailyrenegade.com. Get a membership today. All right, so we're going to call it good for the free version here for everybody who hasn't become a member. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video. Please get a membership if you haven't already. So members, hang on the line. Everybody else, thank you so much for watching. Till next time, take care and God bless.